Right now is obviously a very special moment for us. It's pretty rare that this happens. It's not the norm. It's not like television where people believe that an ambulance and doctors arrive and everything's going to be okay. It's for Lyn's condition and what she actually had happening to her. She had multiple conditions. She had a pulmonary embolism, but she also then had a bleed in her brain. And to make the recovery that she has it's amazing. It really is amazing. It's the one in a billion job that you're involved in, where you do lots and lots of training and hope that you'll get to see one of those jobs where you could say it was a miracle, where everything on that day went to plan. Alright, what actually happened on the day was we were up at the Mersey Hospital just having a chat to some of the doctors up there, and we got a call to a collapse at a church. It was roughly about 10 o'clock in the morning. We responded to the job as an emergency. We arrived on scene. We realised that it didn't look like it was going to be a basic collapse, because people were pouring out of the church crying and very upset. We went inside to find a group of people standing around Lyn at the time, who was lying on the floor on her back. If you can imagine a goldfish out of water trying to breathe. She was in a very serious state of affairs. It didn't look good initially straight up, and realistically from there deteriorated. Initially she was unconscious, which is not responding to us at all. She had a pulse rate of 20 and her respiratory rate was fairly rapid, but like deep, like she was desperately trying to breathe, but it was pretty obvious there was no oxygen being taken on board. She had pupils when we looked at her eyes, one of her pupils was dilated, which would have indicated that she had some kind of bleed happening in her head. And so then we started to work on her. Do you want to have a chat?
Yeah, so basically there was two other people at the scene. One was a doctor and one was a nurse, I believe. Is that right? Yeah, so Richard took over. He took charge and directed us all. He took charge of the airway initially, wasn't it right, Richard?
Yep.
I started to set up IVs, and we kept the nurse and doctor doing some CPR. And then we just decided, this lady needs some drugs to increase her heart rate. She needs some fluids to also get some circulation around the body, but most of all she needed oxygen to the brain. So Richard ran a protocol on her where he gave some adrenaline and atropine. The doctor kept up with CPR, and I can't sort of recall much more after that, because it was pretty full on. Like it was trying to work on Lyn, and at the same time there were still people in the church, and trying to sort of ask them to politely leave, because you want to maintain your patient's dignity at the same time. But we had our hands full basically. We also called for another crew to back us up, which they arrived just prior to us departing to help out. You can probably add a bit more to that, Richard.
So what we did was we got some IV access, which is basically we just put some needles into Lyn so we could give her some medication. The drugs, what we were trying to do was increase, like as Galen said, we were trying to increase her heart rate to adequately perfuse her head, because that's all we were trying to do at the time. She was obviously cerebrally irritated, so that there wasn't enough blood supply going around the body. So the drugs we gave increased her heart rate, but the initial problem as well was that there was obviously some kind of blockage in her heart as well, so we did fairly rapid and fairly heavy CPR to try and push the blood through. Initially Lyn was not conscious, but she had a pulse, and then basically what happened was then she became pulseless, her actually heart stopped beating. So we went into a different protocol where we was given more drugs and fluid to try and increase the activity of her heart. So basically then Lyn was, I suppose you could say she was clinically dead. Her head was still alive, but her heart had stopped beating. So then it was decided that we would need to, we'd basically come to the limits of what we could do, and decided to transport her rapidly to hospital. The second crew arrived, and which was Ian Hart, and I'm not sure who. Rebecca, and then basically we loaded Lyn as quickly as possible, and took her to the Mersey Hospital on an emergency. We notified the hospital that Lyn was coming in, and to be ready for us, and give them an idea of what was going on. And then when we arrived at the hospital, which was it wasn't too bad because the hospital was fairly close, so we then assisted the medical staff, the doctors and nurses at the medical staff, and basically they took over from our treatment, but we stayed around and discussed some further treatment of what we should do and what they should do and what we actually found, what we thought it was, and basically their emergency staff took over the case there. And then it was a matter of just at the time I give Lyn probably a 99.9% chance that she wouldn't have made it through that day. It's from where she was when we found you to what you're looking like now. It's obviously a very special moment for us.